Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. It's April 19th, and we have special guest Megan Hill joining us.
Hello, hello.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
being
having
here.
me. I'm so
Yeah,
excited to chat with you.
yeah, this is a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to it.
Very cool. What's your podcast called?
Shauna's Miraculous Podcast.
I like it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, like, Megan, like, what's a miracle?
You are?
Well, that's so cool because I was also going to acknowledge that you are as well, and um, and that is like such a great like answer because it's like, well, you are, and that extends and includes like everybody, you know.
Yeah.
Well, your SOP session was miraculous, like, because it was kind of like my first that in Berlin.
Yeah.
So it was like my first in-person class. And then so it was really cool because when we exchanged, I was like I really had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
And I thought like, oh, maybe I'll kind of like mimic your session. And then
Right.
I was like, holy fuck, that was such a miraculous session.
Right. You're like, I couldn't do that because she's miraculous. I'm just a pile of shit.
That was so cool though. Like, yeah, SOP sessions are like something like beyond, this.
They're really like in exploring the energy that you are and the energy that the universe is and that the energy that's all around us. And what I find is that if you can actually perceive like a miraculous person, like, you said you saw me or the session was miraculous, you also you are that. Anything that you can perceive, you are. So, especially for like on the topic of miraculous and miracles, like I live in Denver and I have this gorgeous mountain view, and like almost every day, maybe I've gotten a little slacking lately for like who knows, but like I will look at the sun setting over the mountains and be like, oh my God, it's just every day is miraculous. Like how fucking beautiful this planet is. And I know that probably 90% of the people don't ever look at it, so it's like miracles and miraculousness, it's like it's what you're able to perceive and receive and be. And so what one person can't even see, especially even if it's you, like you're like, oh, I am fucking miraculous and you see me as like this big, like it's okay. But like as long as you start getting a sense of how miraculous you are as a being, and it starts with, I think we oftentimes see other people around us like, wow, you're so miraculous or you're so amazing. And if you're seeing that in other people, it's because you also are that. And that can be a great place to start. Like, okay, cool. So what am I that I'm not acknowledging that I'm seeing in this other person?
Yeah, that's really cool. Especially the part where you were also I'll acknowledge I'm a miracle.
Yeah.
Now going
Good.
forward.
Step one accomplished. Okay.
Just an FYI. So
Yay!
so
Miracle.
woohoo. Well, and lately, everything has been getting greater and greater. Like every day I'm so excited and I'm looking around and I'm like, "Oh my God, like do you see these miracles? Like do you see what's going on here?" And it's like so, like you said, some people might not like look at that sunset or sunrise, and then like for me looking in the morning at the dawn, I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so cool." So it's like, I guess it's really being open to perceiving miracles and maybe what they are for each individual person,
Yeah,
or like the beauty of earth.
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just start there, like if you will allow yourself to receive the beauty of the planet and everything that it has to contribute to you, like just that, your life might start changing if you allowed it. You
Hmm.
don't have to know how. Like I remember uh Dr. Dane here, who most of you probably know if you're listening to this podcast. But he was talking a lot about like come up with your wow list, like a miracle list or your wow list. And I was like, I didn't know what to write down because I didn't like, anyway, I couldn't do it the way that he was saying. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to actually ask, what would it take to actually have wows show up? Because I have no clue what would be a wow for me right now. Like, I'm kind of like, anything I could think of wasn't enough. It didn't have enough like juice, you know?
Mhm.
And I remember I was out in Puerto Vallarta on a boat with people, and we were looking at, I think we were just going across the bay or something. And all these dolphins started just like jumping and riding with us on the boat. And then we pulled up and randomly they see a whale, and the whale like was right next to the boat, which is not supposed to happen because you're not even supposed to get that close to them. And it came up and the spout just like, and I could perceive the energy of the dolphins and the way, and I was just like, wow, like, okay, I get it. More of this. Like, I don't even know what the fuck this is, but I'll have more of this.
Yeah.
And for me, that's how I can create my life, because I'm like, I'll have more of this energy. And it's like, and the earth always shows me more of that energy, way more than like people, basically. So
Yeah. I mean, it's like the whole people thing. When I look at that, I'm like, I'm willing to add people to my life now and, asking for these like people or beings who are like really cool or like, I guess aware, like potent and like all these things. So it's like, oh, what would it take for this to show up? And then, um, when you ask questions, it's very interesting on how, like, when you don't have a conclusion, it kind of takes you places and things just show up randomly.
yeah,
Well, the
not
wow
random,
list,
not really randomly. Like it is truly by your request. It can feel random, but it's that there is no conclusion or result in mind when you put a request out without having like knowing how or when or what's going to show up. And I think we often discount that because it's like, again, that's where you know, like if you start telling people like, well, I actually, it's so interesting that we met and we had this amazing night because I asked for this like a week ago, you know, like
what are you
be
aware
like,
of?
you're fucking crazy. It's like, no, you know, you'll be like, I asked for this and
Yeah.
thank you, universe, you know?
Well, yeah, because that, like, this morning as I was driving and I was like, oh, I could pull over. And you're like, no, see you in an hour. I was on my way home. I was like, ooh, I'm just so lucky. But then I was also like, oh, am I lucky or is this just choice? Like with all these really cool things happening with life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, that's, you know, interesting.
Well,
Um,
there is a movie that I can't remember the name of it, but the girl in the movie, her superpower is luck. And so
yeah.
it's one of the like Marvel movies, and like her superpower is luck. And if it can be kind of like again, like discounted because, oh, you're just like, oh, everything's just easy for you. And oh, things just show up for you. And it's like, yes, I am. Luck is a superpower. And I have to let
Yeah.
my dog out before
Oh, yeah.
she needs to go chase a rabbit. Um, and and I am a part of that. Like luck is not outside of me. Like luck is part of the fact that I, you know, engage with the molecules of the universe and receive, you know?
Um, yeah, like engaging with the molecules of the universe, and like following the energy, it like looking at that, okay, like is that a choice and an awareness? And like, because I think sometimes when people, you know, think about it could be just as easy as just doing it. I'm gonna do this, you know, and follow the energy of what you're asking for and aware of.
Well, what if it's actually your natural state of being?
Wow.
And how much have, like, if you take you as an example, how much did you naturally follow the energy and follow what you knew and ask for things and have them show up and engage with the molecules around you before you found this wacky shit called access.
Yeah, that's way back when, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, wow, there you go. Because yeah, that was a lot of fun too, you know,
Yeah.
going with that. Yeah, life can be like super fun.
Yeah. And I think it's for me, like these, the access consciousness tools or whatever, they remind you what you know. And some of us knew as kids, some of us like, and it got shut down, or sometimes you just, it's a way to like increase your superpowers. But one thing I know is like, well, part of the reason that my life has worked the way that it has is because I naturally create like this, like like I didn't have someone putting words to it the way that they that like access classes, that it's shown me how to have more of it and how to awaken the places that I might have turned the light off, but it's like, this is, if you get that your natural way of creating is more like following the energy and listening to the whispers and choosing miraculous shit, and it gets easier because then it's not like you have to like study it or do better and get an A. It's like, hey, this is, what would I act like? What would be true for me here? Would this choosing this really hard path be true? Or is there another more natural way that would work for me?
Yeah. Um, I like how you mentioned the wow list, and this was like a while ago, and it was like you had asked like a couple questions like what's easy for you, what's fun for you, what do you love? And then I didn't have an answer, right? Like kind of like what you said about the wow list. And I was like, well, okay, the earth. And so or like the ocean. And now when I look back, I'm like, oh, there's like a lot of things, it's more than like at first when people maybe starting out or this is new to people like asking that question, sometimes people are just like, oh, well, I don't know or have an answer. And then like when I got that awareness, I was like, oh, well, then maybe take myself to the beach or something and start choosing it. And then now I'm here, like this is like what 5 years later, and I'm like, oh, well, there's like a huge list of things, like and it's expanding on that, which is really cool because it's always, I guess maybe for me it's kind of really honing in or like being aware of like what is so much fun, and like I guess like fun is a huge thing, and then the laughter, and then the um I guess the adventure of just things like those miracles popping up. Um, yeah, so it's kind of like, oh, what's fun, you know?
I remember my very first class that I ever took with Gary Douglas. He said, what if the purpose of life is to have fun? And I was like 27 or something at the time. So I was really like, got to get the purpose of my life right. Like, what is the purpose of living? And when it was like just to have fun, I'm like, oh my God, that's so much easier than whatever train I was on trying to get the perfect life, you know? And
I
then
think,
finding what's fun for you and having that constantly change is part of the joy of living. And it's what's fun for you may not be fun for other people. That's okay.
mhm. Well, like, oh, that went like real far. Like, um,
Sorry. I'm having a hard time, like, knowing if my words are even making sense right now. So
I have a
just
lot of
let me
that
know.
too. I think you're definitely speaking to like the creation of this episode, because there's like so much. You've already talked to a lot of awarenesses. Like when you meet someone, it's really fun. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, happened
Yeah.
last night.
Right. Yeah. I know that. I know that one. I know you.
and then going forward, and then like the I think sometimes people like with figuring out their life, that was certainly something that came up this morning as well,
Right.
because how many people like think, okay, now I'm gonna go to church, and then I'm gonna like figure out my life and really figure out what makes me happy. That's great. And it's like you don't have to have an equation or the right answer. And once you kind of like I mean, maybe adjust or like have a different, actually, these tools are just really helpful. So like maybe this is the conversation that could catalyze this for like a lot of people out there, you know,
Totally.
making it so easy. Or is it easy?
Like when you meet someone at one night and then you wake up the next day, like, where is this going to go now? You know, you want to plan it all out and, you know,
Oh.
it's great
Having
to
fun.
just be like, well, how does it get any better than that?
And it's as simple as that.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And your mind can really get going, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I kind of had to do with like you know, like whether it's having someone show up or whatever, it's like instead of that, I guess the mind being like, okay, so first we're gonna do this, and then we have to do this, and then relationship, and then all this stuff, and all these things the brain comes up with. And then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna let that go, and then just kind of, I know for a fact something's gonna happen. And then it showed up real quick, real fast, and so much fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, super fun. Wow. Did you hear that?
Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah. Oh, okay, I'm sometimes I forget about the time, but um anyways, yeah, like what else? I would say yeah, everything's been pretty fun lately.
That's cool.
Hmm. Yeah. So you're like you were traveling for a bit? Like you
I actually just spent actually before I move on, I just want to say part of like the magic and miracles is acknowledging when they show up. So more of them can show up. So like you just acknowledging like, wow, everything's been fun for a while. Like, cause you know, I've worked with you on different occasions and it's like, there's been times that weren't that much fun, but you're asking for it and you didn't know how to get there. And it's like, you've got to, when the magic and the miracles show up that you've been asking for, please acknowledge them because it's like a thank you to the universe so that it gets acknowledged and you get acknowledged in the creation of it, and then more and more can show up. I think that's one of the things that I know I forget to do a lot. Like, oh my God, I need to actually acknowledge I fucking created this and the universe contribute, like acknowledge you, because
Mhm.
otherwise, you know, anyway. Yeah, so I was in Costa Rica for 3 weeks.
Sweet.
It was awesome. And
At El Lugar?
I was in El Lugar for 2 weeks, and I was in a beach location called Puerto Viejo on the Caribbean side for like a week. Um,
Cool.
and it was very interesting to see where um, I think coming like leaving, like I was like, oh my God, let me get out of this like whatever routine I have as my life, you know, and then get there. And the moment I hit the ground in Costa Rica, like my whole body relaxed. And so then coming home, it's been interesting because I don't know if you do this, but I have these different like structures that I've set up my life as. And so when I leave where my life is, like home, things are like more relaxed. I'll let myself follow the energy a bit more than maybe like a schedule of like got to take the kid to school, got to do, you know, like life can become a little bit like this if you have children. So
Mhm.
warning if you're thinking of having children.
And that was the
Children
next
are
topic.
great. Children are wonderful and they own you basically. So um but it was so interesting to look at, okay, why, as I'm home, why would I not wake up in the morning and live from that same freedom that I had when I was in Costa Rica? Like, so I've been looking at my life and anywhere I've been like, well, okay, this is what I have to do because this is what I do in the day. You know, like really the magic of destroying and uncreating everything that you think has to be so that something new can show up. And it doesn't mean that I have to like move to Costa Rica, even though I've thought about it. Um, it's like allowing the like structures of your life to melt so that you can have more freedom to play, basically.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think that um definitely goes a long way in regards to speaking with, the people out there who may be parents or thinking about having kids. Cause I'm like, you know what? In 2 years, I might have a kid or two. And then like there's so many people with their points of views where it's like, okay, never or don't. And it's interesting because I think kids are so aware. So when I'm in that space and people are saying that, but it's right in their space as well, I'm like, "Aw," And then there's people like mostly, well, there's like mostly family saying have kids, and then I met someone at an expo, and she's like, "Have a kid,"
yeah,
and I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I guess there are so many ways to make it work where you can still like have your reality, because you just said like kids, like when you have a kid they basically own you.
they
And
do. So does
yeah,
my dog. It's just that's the reality of it.
well, it's interesting trying to like I guess maybe get to know or date people who have kids, but
Uh-huh.
they're just completely unavailable, because if they're a single parent, they're
Yeah.
like they're like, because if I'm like, hey, you want to go for a date or go for dinner, whatever, all these things, and the person's like, oh, I'd love to, yes, and then
Yeah.
it never happens because they have kids, and I'm like, and in my brain, because I'm single, I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
you
I just imagine every child is like 5 full-time jobs. So that's the energy that they're dealing with. If they have more than one kid, they have whatever job they have, and then about 10 other full-time jobs. And then if they have a pet or something. So that's just the energy kind of what they're dealing with.
And oh my God, this is such a great conversation. I've had five like jobs, or
Yeah.
couple like full-time, couple part, and like yeah, all that stuff, and that's like you're nonstop.
You're nonstop. It's you're really not. And even as they like Tristan, my son, he's 12 now, and I like it has gotten easier in a way because he's totally self-sufficient. Like he can feed himself and he can dress himself and he knows what he's supposed to do for school, like all that. But now there's another level of like I have to drive him everywhere, and I'm his driver. So I feel like the next 3 years until he gets his driver's license, or 4, however many it is, it's like all my spare time is in being his chauffeur and also being like his, you know, confidant of, talking about different things and being his friend and all of that wonderful stuff. But it really is like and to have like access consciousness, the parenting side of this changed my world so much. Like I became a mom when I was using access consciousness tools. So I'm really grateful for that. But you still have all these like fantasies of what it's going to be like. And when it doesn't match those fantasies, it can be quite confronting. But it's like just knowing like, okay, 18 years, that's you're committing to 18 years.
Mhm.
And in those 18 years, your main job is to make sure that they stay alive. If they stay alive until 18, you've done a good job. Anything else is just bonus. And realize like there's a relaxation in that. And then everything else is just like, okay, cool. Like, did I like, he's still alive. So that's good. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. There's something with parenting where it's so wonderful. And it's also so, it brings up a lot of your shit because they ultimately are the one thing that can control you. That's why they chose you as a parent. And it brings up all your stuff. And so, it's wonderful and joyful. And it's really great to have access consciousness tools to navigate through the wilderness of parenting in a very different way, because I also don't desire to like parent like anything else out there. I don't give him, I empower him to have choice. I empower him to know what he knows. And then there's also this place where you're not like letting them be like completely out of control nut jobs, where you're helping guide them until they're 12, you have an influence in their life. So I'm almost done. I'm basically done. Now I just have to pray that I, did a good job.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure how much my words like would like help, but I'm pretty sure you've done a pretty fucking awesome job.
Thank
Like,
you.
that's like so cool. And yeah, because you're an awesome person. And with the tools that like would be so much more different because there's also like in this reality that I observe a lot. And so I
Yeah.
see a lot of like, people doing the right and wrong thing. And then I also see people giving a different space as well.
Yeah.
And so, my friend the other day, she's like, yeah, the kids like trigger me constantly. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? And she's like, but I know because like I've hung around kids for a bit, and sometimes they just like
They do.
they're like they are out of control. Yeah, and they don't even like I don't even know like these like my friends' kids, and they're just like trigger, 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 trigger. And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa. And
Yeah.
so to be a parent with kids constantly, like you said, there's a lot of like control and all this stuff. And yeah. So it's like I bet, yeah, I bet those tools like do really help. And I mean they do, and it changes and creates a lot of different space.
Yeah.
Compared to like the whole right and wrong dichotomy of
Yeah.
yeah, it's a whole lot more space.
And it's like, when you said you're looking at like you could have kids and everything, those again, it's like, are those energies that you'd like to add to your life? And then even in the creation of that, you can ask, like, hey, what would it take for these energies to show up? It might show up in the form of a kid. It might show up in the form of an animal. It might show up in the form of a partner, a lover, like, but then you can have the free, you may not want your lover to be like a child, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah. Or
But
like
you can ask for energies, like I really thought I was asking for this energy. I really wanted to experience like true communion with something else. Like I thought it was going to be a person, right? I was like, I don't feel like I've ever really known that. And it was a horse. I thought it was going to be like a man or something, but it turned out to be a horse.
that's cool.
Which
Yeah,
showed me that I could then ask for that energy. I had to be willing to receive that energy before it could show up in any other format.
hmm,
So the horse was just the universe's way of slipping that in a way that I couldn't control.
yeah, that's like, oh man, that's such a miracle in itself to be like have that show up and then like know that energy and then add it to your life and ask for more of that to show up.
Exactly that.
That's super
Yeah.
cool. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like this conversation can go on forever and ever.
Totally.
Yeah, because there's like so much more. Like, and I'm grateful for your time.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. Um,
Thank you for having me, and I'll come on anytime.
cool. Yeah, yeah, there's probably a lot more topics and things evolve and grow and change. So I would, yeah, definitely look forward to chatting again.
Cool. Thank you, Shauna.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.